And we have to be smart about it as well, because let's just continue with the restaurant scenario for a moment. What I see also is restaurants that are offering too many menu items, and that you can apply that to just about every business. So focusing and understanding where the margin is. And in the case of restaurants, sometimes it's menu design that can have a lot to do with where you guide people to your most profitable items, right? Employee training, all of those things to upsell, all of those things play a big role in it. But we have to have the confidence and the courage to increase our prices. Yes, your customers will probably balk at it, but they're seeing this everywhere. And while certainly there are times when there's a disconnect, people somehow think that restaurant prices should remain where they were, despite the fact that now we have in certain states where we're paying $15 an hour minimum wage, right?
Hey, it's the Profit Answer Man, Rocky Lalvani. If you're new to the podcast, check out my interview with Mike Michalowicz. It's episode number 2. If you want to hear about each chapter in the Profit First book, go back and listen to episodes 3 through 13. Episode 1 is the why and how. On the Profit Answer Man, we learn money mastery without all the complicated accounting mumbo-jumbo, using a simple system. Your accountant is busy documenting your transactions and creating a rearview mirror of what happened. My guess is you don't even look at the reports they sent you. If you're like most business owners, you struggle with this, and it's not your fault. We aren't taught money in school, and accountants aren't taught how to be profitable. The Profit First system created by Mike Michalowicz works, and he certified me to help you implement the system in your business. Remember, the new equation is sales minus profit equals expenses. Let's face it, without cash flow, you can't pay your employees, buy needed materials, or pay your mortgage and support your family. I help you to do that and more, so you can focus on the parts of the business you love and receive the rewards for your labor and investment into your business. The stronger you are as a business owner, the more jobs you create, the better we are as a country. Small business owners are the backbone of America, and for that, you deserve to be well rewarded. Just remember, more revenue does not equal more profit. That's why we focus on the bottom line. I find a lot of times accountants don't speak the language of business. It makes sense. They have different goals than we do. And so their focus is on different outcomes. Trust me, I'm married to one. I got to tell you, though, it was a major aha for me. Today, we're going to chat about cash flow and some simple levers that you can implement to help you increase yours along with your profitability. The real outcome is less anxiety, less worry. You make payroll and other checks when you need to. You don't fret over it. Having clarity on what the financial future and cash flow look like. It lets you sleep at night. The reality is many business owners struggle with this, and that's our goal, to help you not. Henry Lopez is back again. Henry is a serial entrepreneur, small business coach and consultant, and host of the top-rated The How of Business podcast show. Henry has over 36 years of diverse business experience, including successful careers in the information technology industry, sales training, business ownership. He's been involved in 12 different businesses since buying his first one in 1991. Henry has bought and sold businesses and also developed his own new business, including franchises. His businesses span various industries, including restaurants, real estate, salon suites, software, travel, shared office space and co-working, car washing, small business coaching and consulting. He's currently in Florida with his wife. Let's meet Henry and learn from his wisdom. Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Henry Lopez. It's great to have you join us today.
Thanks for having me back on the show. So excited to be here.
Excited to have you back. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Sure. Well, I'm involved in multiple different things, but the primary thing that keeps me occupied is the How a Business, which is a podcast, as you know, as well as I offer through that brand coaching services, some limited consulting services, but coaching as well as online workshops and programs. So the How a Business podcast is what keeps me mostly busy. I'm still involved in other business. I'm a minority partner in a business and a couple of other businesses that I'm in and out of, but that's primarily what keeps me busy today.
So needless to say, you have lots of entrepreneurial experience, work with lots of business owners, kind of understand some of the struggles and see some ways that they can improve their businesses.
Agreed.
So one of the things I've found, and the whole reason that I started what I do, is that many business owners don't have good financial visibility. I just assumed that when you started a business, you were going into business to be a business owner. And then I learned, no, they're going into it to do what they loved, and accounting just wasn't on that list. Love to hear what you see with business owners.
Yeah, no, I see the same thing. And it's amazing to me, but I get it just like you do. Because listen, the reality is when I stop and think, as we're recording this, we're fast approaching the deadline for most businesses to file their taxes. Am I all up to date and got everything in? No. So I got to be careful if I point fingers. It's a challenge because, to your point, we get distracted with everything else about our business. And I find that most people come to it thinking, well, I'm just not a numbers person, or the math confuses me, or I just don't have the accounting background. And people hide behind that excuse because I am not good at math either. And if I can do it, others can. I think it just requires a realization and an acceptance that it is a critical part of running a business successfully is to have some handle on your financials, to be able to interpret the basic financial statements and other KPIs that, while a lot of them might be lagging indicators, are key to us not managing our business blindly. So to answer your question again, I see it all the time. It surprises me, but then again, it doesn't surprise us. But we cannot hide behind that excuse as business owners. We've got to get our arms around the financials.
Why do you think most business owners ignore or shy away from the financials?
I have found one of the things that I have found in common, I think, Rocky, is if you in your personal life, either it's not something you have under control, let's say, maybe you've never learned basic money lessons, as for most of us, because, for most of us, we grow up in households where that's just not discussed. It might be a source of embarrassment. And so it's something that's taboo, maybe even to talk about. And so I think we bring those bad habits, if you will, to business.
So how do we help people overcome those emotions? Because I see that all the time. And I think a lot of times people are afraid to chat with us because of that. And the biggest thing we like to say is, you know what? Most businesses come to us not because they're perfect. It's because they're very messy, because they've hit bottom, or they've gotten so frustrated that they're like, we need help. And we know that this is what it is. I mean, this is just what we see. But I'm trying to figure out how to get over this hurdle.
I would say two things that come into play. I don't know that I have the answer, but first is that sometimes we don't want to know, right? And I think we might be afraid of what the financials might tell us about whether our business really is viable or not. We see so many businesses that are barely breaking even or tapping into their personal savings all the time. But it's the hardest decision ever, I think, for a business owner to say, this business model is not working. I need to stop or completely pivot or abandon this business. That's hard to do, right? Because it's this thing that you've created, this thing that you've invested in, and it's an admission of failure. And as much as we might talk about how failure is good and we learn from our failures, the reality is that none of us enjoy failure, and more so do we enjoy talking about or admitting that our business is not successful. And at the end of the day, business, for-profit business, is measured by whether you are profitable or not. I think by avoiding the numbers, we maybe bury our head in the sand a little bit. And I'm sorry to be so harsh, but that's the reality of it. We bury our heads in it. But also there's that factor that we've touched on already, which is of maybe some shame or embarrassment. But I'll tell you this, every single time, either me personally, and I know you found this as well, Rocky, when you finally get as I keep saying, your arms around it, when you finally get focus on where you're at, even if it's not good, the sense of relief that comes to people when they say, all right, at least now I know what it is and I've got some plan of attack. I have found that when you get that clarity, it is much better than living in an environment where it's like, I don't know. I just know at the end of the month, I have X amount left over in the bank account and I go with that. I always find that when people realize and understand it and dive into it, even if the news is bad, it's better because now I know what the truth is and I can tackle that. What are your thoughts?
And I agree with you. One of the things that I have usually found, and I forget the exact name of the story, it's called like Acres of Diamonds. It's most business owners have great opportunities all around them. They just don't recognize them. Sometimes it's emotional. So it just might be something as simple as fixing the pricing. And we'll talk more about that, in a minute. It could be that there are leaks in the business that they're just not aware of. It could be that they need to make some harsh decisions about some employees that just aren't performing up to expectations. They're not doing what they should. And those things all become major cash leaks. So I think sometimes, it's those different things. And then the other thing is, as we look at their business, and if we take the time to dig in, sometimes we will find what I call pools of profit, and we can shift our focus and our efforts to those areas. Now, other times, like you said, and I see this a lot with e-commerce businesses. They think they buy something for $1 and sell it for $2 and life is good. The actual overhead costs of the platforms that they're using, the software costs, all of this stuff becomes overwhelming. And if they don't look at that and they don't realize it, then they don't know that the products that they're sourcing aren't going to meet their needs. And when they spend the time to understand what's going on in the business, what the needs and the margins need to be, then they will make better decisions. Once they have clarity, like you said, it becomes much easier for them to go out and to do what they need to do. The other thing that I think many of them struggle with is they look at their P&L and their P&L says they're profitable maybe, but they can't find the cash.
Right.
And I think there's a big struggle of that disconnect between accounting reports and bank balances. I don't know what you've found.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I'll say this as well, because I don't want anybody who's listening to this to think that, well, who are Rocky and Henry to pontificate and tell us that we need to do this. I don't have an accounting background. I learned this, and I'm still learning every day from people like you and others and my CPAs, and because I just asked the question. And early in my days starting in business, I would just ask the same question again and again until I got it right. This can be complex. There's parts of it that's complex, but the basics of it are not really that complex. You have to just be willing to take that step to learn, to ask questions, and to keep asking the right questions. I always tell people, if you've got a CPA who makes you uncomfortable or makes you feel stupid after you've had a session with them, you've got the wrong CPA, right? So don't be afraid to be open to, I don't know, and that's okay, but are you willing to learn, right? Oh, I forgot the question you asked me. I'm sorry, I went off on that tangent, but I thought that was so important. You were asking about cash and finding cash versus the P&L, right?
Yes, because I think accountants speak and use a different language than what business owners use. And so they might both be speaking English, but they're not on the same page.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you and I both know this. The statistics show it is pretty simple. Businesses fail because they run out of cash. And often it's because of our inability to predict how much cash I'm going to need at any particular point in time. You also will often hear this from people who don't understand business. Like, God, I don't know why that place went out of business. It seemed like they were always busy. They seemed like they were doing well. And 9 times out of 10, I don't know, but I bet that if I looked and did some forensic analysis, I would find that it was a cash flow challenge that they might have gotten stuck with. Yeah. Or to your point, they were operating, selling a lot of it, but not at the right price point. They weren't making any money on it. Right. So those two factors that you point to, Rocky, I think are so critical. And it's what we have to learn to do. That is business. We are in business to make a profit. And we have to learn how to measure that and project that, right?
That is so true. And I think that's one of the biggest things we do for our clients who don't have clear cash flow and clear predictability. We help them model it out, whether we go out, 1 quarter at a time, or some of them we'll look at the entire year. And we're, at the beginning of March, we already know what a good chunk of the year is going to be. We know when the problems are going to occur. We know what steps we need to take today to prevent them and make sure that they never happen. Let's talk about pricing because, I'm just thinking of 2 things locally. Our favorite restaurant, I had to keep yelling at him to raise his prices. I would take people there and they'd look at their bill and they go, "Are you kidding me? Is this all it is?" And I'm like, "You've got to," and he was struggling. And then I went to a new restaurant the other night and I'm going through the menu and I'm like, I don't even know what his costs are, but I can tell by the prices on the menu and how certain items are differently packaged that they're in trouble. I can see it just by knowing the inputs and looking. I'm like, you got to work on the pricing. What are your thoughts on pricing?
Yeah, this is a huge one, and it's particularly a big deal because of the inflationary times that we're at. So mostly for all of us that are producing some type of product or service, our costs have gone up. And there's always that resistance. Well, I'm afraid to pass it on to my clients or my customers because I might lose them. And there might be some of that, but we have to pass on these increases. We have to revisit pricing. And we have to be smart about it as well, because let's just continue with the restaurant scenario for a moment. What I see also is restaurants that are offering too many menu items, and that you can apply that to just about every business. So focusing and understanding where the margin is. And in the case of restaurants, sometimes it's menu design that can have a lot to do with where you guide people to your most profitable items, right? Employee training, all of those things to upsell, all of those things play a big role in it. But we have to have the confidence and the courage to increase our prices. Yes, your customers will probably balk at it, but they're seeing this everywhere. And while certainly there are times when there's a disconnect, people somehow think that restaurant prices should remain where they were, despite the fact that now we have in certain states where we're paying $15 an hour minimum wage, right? We went through this in our self-serve frozen yogurt restaurants, which we've sold now. But in Colorado, when we opened back in 2010, I forget what the minimum wage was, around $9. And so right after we opened was when they passed a law, and every year over the, I think 5 years, it went up to $15 an hour. And I can tell you the restaurateurs were thinking, oh, there's no way we can operate in this environment. Well, that's true if you don't raise your prices. So we systematically raised our prices. Did we get some pushback? Sure. Did we get some clients that priced out? Sure. But it's what we had to do to stay in business, to continue to be profitable, to continue to provide a place for both our customers, our employees. And we were able to do it. We were able to do it profitably. I think the restaurant industry is one of those examples where they're getting caught with these two things of increasing labor costs, increased material costs, and this demand that we think is there, and some of it is and some of it isn't, that our customers they're just not going to bear much more than that. But you're absolutely right. What I'm noticing is the restaurants that are executing well now, that are providing good service, that have kept their wait staff that's been there forever, their prices are higher than the other places who are not. Yeah. And they're the ones that are going to survive.
And they have.
They have to. I had a gentleman on my show recently, and we talked about pricing and he's an economist, and he recommends to do it quickly, but to do it in increments, if that's what works best for you. So yeah, there are strategies by which to do it, but you have to do it.
And you also have to know where and by how much.
That's right. That's right.
So that you can make an informed decision.
And so if you don't have visibility on your financials, if you don't have a good understanding of what my gross margins are on these items, that's where you have to start, right? Otherwise, you're just guessing at what your price increase should be.
And I know since we're on the restaurant industry, we'll stay there. But, when you pick your menu, there are certain items that are what we call comparator items that everyone naturally goes to judge how the overall menu is. And so sometimes we might have to be price conscious of a couple items, but then make it up in other particular areas and charge appropriately on that side. And that's fine. You have to do that. You have to understand the psychology of pricing, and we've covered that before. The elasticity of pricing, we've covered that before. And the fact that, I guess maybe we should ask the question, how bad would you feel if you knew people were willing to pay you double what you're charging?
Right. And you've left that money on the table. More so, you've put yourself in a position to probably be out of business, not just left the money on the table, because we can't really go back and recover that money, can we? So once that opportunity is past us, it's usually past us. And so you owe it to yourself, of course, to your business, to the people you employ, and to your customers to continue to be an ongoing concern that serves them, right? And yes, you're going to get some pushback. Everybody's going to complain, I suspect. But the reality is that the customers who value what you offer will come back, and they'll keep coming to your establishment. The ones that were looking for the 99-cent value menu, or that they need to go elsewhere, right?
And, and I remember that because there were a lot of diners around here that would offer $1.99 specials for 2 eggs. I'm like, well, did you notice the price of eggs? You better make sure you're not losing money at breakfast, because
that's right. Yeah,
it's horrible to start your day in the hole.
It's a tough business. Listen, I mean, there's no doubt that's one of the reasons why the restaurant industry has traditionally some of the higher failure rates. These are some of the challenges that particularly impact restaurants.
But
I see it across the board, right? I see it across the board. And the other place where we see it, and you and I have talked about this, is not just, like you're saying, being careful where you price, but maybe not offering certain products. Or do you even know which product lines or which subset of items or services are your most profitable, but not just your most profitable, which ones are easiest for you to deliver, right? Because you might have certain offerings that are high margin, but at what cost? Right. And so we have to balance those two things. And that requires some analysis and looking at that consistently to determine, where do I stay focused? I see a lot of people have a reservation about eliminating items that they offer because, oh, no, we've offered that forever, or my clients love that. Well, it doesn't matter. You have to focus your offering sometimes, especially when we're dealing with inflationary challenges.
And I remember talking to one construction guy, and I don't remember the specifics, but he did like siding and windows or something. And what he said to me, and again, I don't remember the exact specifics, but when I do siding, even though I've got good margins, my labor is through the roof to do the siding. When I do windows, I can do the costs are much, much lower. And so it's actually understanding not just how much is the siding and how much is the window, but how much time and effort goes into each. And then it's also a question, depending on what it is. But let's say I'm selling a product for $500 and $5,000. If I have the same sales cycle for both, if I can sell something for $5,000 that provides $500 in profit, and it takes me the same effort to sell something for $500 that gives me $50 in profit, well, where should I be putting my time and effort into it? Where I get the biggest return. And I think that's time seems to be a missing piece everywhere, because there's no time on the P&L other than maybe labor cost. And it's not necessarily clear. But that is one of the things we look at. We actually look at labor divided by their gross profit to say, what does this metric look like? Does it come in range? Is every dollar I spend in payroll actually bringing me a return? And is it reasonable for my business?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then I can continue. You can help me compare myself to others in the industry. It's so much value there when I understand those metrics. But yeah, you bring up such a huge point, and that's the point I was trying to make with that's not just the margin, but the ease of delivery. Do I have the bandwidth right now? Do I have the crews? Being able to leverage all those things that I do have. And what we have known, we figured this out, business people figure this out pretty quickly. By and large, it takes the same amount of effort to sell, to your point, a $500 transaction as it does a $5,000 transaction. Yeah.
The other thing is if you have a lot of offerings, you need to keep a lot of inventory many times.
That's right. And that can kill you.
Especially now. And the reason I say that is if I think about it, I go with inflation and higher rates and having to borrow at higher rates. If I've got a lot of inventory and I'm paying 8 or 10% borrowing costs, if I don't manage my inventory well, my interest costs are going to be what crushes me. And you've got to shift the way you think. Now, I'll be honest. 2 years ago, we were talking to all of our clients and we talk about supply chain. And I'm like, the government's giving you money at pennies.
That's right.
Let's build out large inventories because we don't want you to be in a place where you've got tons of sales and you have nothing to give them.
Right.
Today, we're having the opposite conversation. Right?
That's right.
Supply chains are relatively better, not perfect.
Right. They're better.
But so now let's get rid of inventory because that's where your cash is hidden. You start selling off inventory that you've already paid for. Do you know what you end up with? Tons of cash. And so now we're shifting sales. And I think that's the part of business. You can't keep doing things the same way. You have to look at the economic wins. You have to look at what's going on in your business. And you've got to keep pivoting and shifting through all of that. And if you can put the numbers to that, then it's phenomenal. And that's a big part of what we do. We say, okay, if you draw down inventory, this is what it looks like. What's a healthy inventory in today's world, which was different than yesterday's world.
And like you're alluding to, I'm hearing as well. Well, a year ago, 6 months ago, there were people adding to inventory because of the lag times in supply chain, but that seems to be getting significantly better to the people that I talk to. Yeah, this is just anecdotal, but that's what I'm hearing. And listen, we also, that's an area where I think we got to get better. If you're doing, let's say in the home services industry, where I've got several clients where you might have inventory there for products that you might install, anything from gutters to garage enhancements to windows to shutters to whatever you might do. You want to get more strategic also with, the thing you're trying to do is traditionally you want to deliver as quickly as possible for every client. But what if you get a little bit more strategic and you reserve some of that capacity for those better opportunities? I think we need to get, and what I see is that the businesses that run well and deal with these situations are doing that. In other words, every potential deal doesn't have the same value and doesn't get the same slot in my schedule. You follow what I'm saying? And so I'm seeing that more and more as a strategy to offset the fact that I may not have as much inventory. So it might take me longer to come and install your windows or whatever it is, but I'm reserving capacity for that, that developer that just gave me 10 homes to do, let's say.
And along those same lines, if you're getting performance payments, for example, in construction, you get different milestones, looking at your milestones and saying, okay, where are we in these projects? Do we push a little here so I can hit the milestone and get paid? Or do I go over on this side? The other thing is, I think, at least for the past couple of years, we have seen supply costs skyrocket for many things. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now we're seeing declines. I mean, if you look at the price of wood, skyrocketed, dropping. If I've got a 2x4 in inventory that I paid $3 for and it skyrockets to 9 or 10, well, having inventory makes me profit. But if I bought that 2x4 for $10 and now it's dropping to $6, now I've got a problem because my inventory is worth less and I'm losing money by doing that. And so just being aware of all of that.
You have to be aware of it. And then, listen, it's a guessing game, and sometimes we get caught there. Hence, to your point about cash flow, also, we got to look as far ahead as possible to anticipate those crunches, and then have in place different options for where's that cash going to come from if I do get to a crunch.
So I think the biggest thing we're starting to roll out this quarter is to say to our clients, I want to see 2 months of total expenses in cash in the business so that we can weather storms. They're always asking me, how much money can we take out? And I think we're coming up with, at a minimum, and every business is a little different, but creating bigger cushions to ride the storm, whatever comes. This way, it's a little bit easier. You're going to have to pivot. Cash will get you through the problems.
Absolutely. And then, as you know, in addition to that is, especially if you're a more established business, getting a credit line, or if you have one, getting that bumped up perhaps. And if you're not there, maybe you don't have that credit worthiness, as something as might seem as crude, but as having another business credit card that has a limit that would allow you to float a little bit of money. Sometimes that's all we need. We might need to tap in for $10,000 for 30 days to cover some expenses. And if I can float that on a credit card, while it's not what you want to do on a regular basis, it at least gets me through that crunch, right?
And we have to be very careful with credit, because if you don't pay your credit card, you're paying 24% on every new purchase.
Right. It's usury. I mean, it's yeah.
You're crushing.
But a credit line, I had a client here recently who has had a credit line with the bank, but had never thought about revisiting, could he get an increase? And I suspect that if you've been a good client and you paid off when you did tap into it, that they may well offer you that. And so you've got a little bit more cushion there. So that's our responsibility as business owners, as our businesses mature, to make sure we've got those resources in place in case we need them.
And if you've got a good cash reserve, they are more likely to lend you money. And This way you're doubling your runway, because you borrow from them first before you use your precious cash, right? Other people's money.
Exactly right. Other people's money, yeah.
Is there
the other thing you touched on, the other thing that touched on that came to mind as you were talking about is collections. It's amazing to me also, Rocky, how sometimes the collections process, which really starts all the way back at invoicing, maybe you could argue even in the sales process and the terms that are negotiated. But if you will look at that as a business owner, that there's a lot of hidden cash there. Sometimes it's just sitting there uncollected.
It's not hidden. It's literally thrown away. So I can tell you right now that I sold a property last summer. I have still not paid the cleaning bill, because even though I've asked multiple times for the cleaning bill, they haven't. I don't know where to send payment. I don't know how much to send.
Isn't that amazing?
I gave up. The same thing happened with my HVAC guy. I'm like, can you send me a bill? Do you not need money? Like, seriously.
They do, but their process is so broken. Their systems are not there. They're not getting help, right? So that's probably I'm generalizing, but it's probably someone who maybe is a solopreneur trying to do it all, trying to deliver service, trying to sell, trying to invoice, and they're not getting it done, right? I remember when I had the salon suites, we had these furnaces, because hot water, as you can imagine, in a hair salon was critical. So we had these double boiler systems, and there was only one guy who understood these systems in our area. He was great. I mean, when I could get him out, he knew how to fix these things. But there was one time, it was 90 days later, he hadn't invoiced me, and it was, my girlfriend was taking care of that, but we're not together anymore. And so it's like, how do you run a business that way? But you're right. It's right there,
Well, and I yell at them. I'm like, if you don't charge me, I can't get great service from you tomorrow, because you go out of business, and now I'm stuck trying to find more help. I want to pay you
right,
because I want you to stay in business. I want you to be successful so that we can continue to work together and make more money, especially people who do good work.
Absolutely. So if you're listening to this and this is you, we're not We're calling you out because we know that you can fix this and improve your business, right? And you are capable of these. These are things that can be easily fixed. We just get frustrated with observing this every day, and we realize how very easily you could fix that part of your business.
And this is what I've come to realize. The number one thing I provide is accountability. Let's fix it. Let's fix it this week. By the way, here are 3 systems. Go find some more. Let's pick one. Let's put in some software so that when you're sitting in front of the client, you can touch a couple of buttons on your phone and say, hey, let me tap your credit card and let me get paid right now, right here in this moment. And we don't have to go home and worry about invoicing.
The technologies that exist, affordable technologies and platforms that exist to make this so much easier for you to get paid. And that's what you have to do. But then I think that if you'll get the help that Rocky can help you with, you will feel that burden lift off of you, because it is a burden as business owners. We know it. We know you're not doing this you're not purposely trying to go out of business, right? We're all trying our best we can, but we maybe haven't gotten the help in these areas that we need to get the help in as business owners, so we can get our arms around this and get it under control. And I assure you, as we talked about at the outset of this conversation, is when you start to do that, you will feel so much more empowered. And things will start to look much brighter as you start to get visibility into your business.
And that's the reality of it. The people who come to me are imperfect. They have struggles. Most of them hate doing a lot of the things that we're talking about.
Right.
But they come because they're like, we do need to do it and we need a little bit of help. And if everyone was perfect, I'd be out of business.
Well, listen, I know I'm not perfect, and I'll tell you that I share this often. The thing that I think I look back to, my very first business venture was in 1991, and I was your stereotypical arrogant guy back then. I don't need any help. I'll figure this out, even though I had no experience, right? It was just arrogance. I wish I had learned earlier in my business career to get the help when I need it.
And that is so true. Any closing thoughts?
Just that this is all stuff that we've talked about that you can fix in your business. It's not, while it might feel like it's overwhelming, and it is because you're living it, perhaps, if this is resonating with you, you can fix this. That's the exciting part. You can fix this and get this out of the way so that you have an opportunity to really realize the dream, the reason you got into business, and not a lower paying job than what you had before. We owe this to ourselves, if not anybody else, to get this clarity and get a handle on our financials. So those are my thoughts. If this resonates with you, take action and get some help.
And I agree with that. Whether it's one of us or somebody else,
that's right.
Go find somebody to help you take action. The reality is this is normal in the business world.
It is.
It's not the abnormal, nothing to be ashamed of.
You're not alone, nothing to be ashamed of. Exactly right, Rocky. Thanks for saying that, because that is the case, right? Like we said earlier, there is so much shame associated with financials, and I think that's part of it. I think that's also why we resist getting that help. There's no shame in this. This is what we all struggle with. And the sooner you learn how to manage it, the better you can now move forward.
So true. If people would like to learn more about you, check out your show, what's the best way for them to find you?
Easiest is thehowofbusiness.com. So at thehowofbusiness.com, you'll find my podcast as well as all of the other services that I offer.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Henry.
Thank you, Rocky. Always a great conversation, so I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
What's one thing you can change to improve your cash flow? Is it raising prices? Is it getting a better understanding of where the cash is going? Especially the cash that's not showing up on your P&L? Maybe it's getting rid of some of your offerings to make business simpler and spend a lot less time, giving you more time to focus on what's more profitable. There are a lot of levers in your business, and taking a few minutes to sit and think about them and which ones make the biggest impact with a little bit of effort is big. That's the key. Pick one today Make the change, and remember, you don't need more resources. You need to be more resourceful. Remember to focus on the bottom line.
If you'd like for us to be a part of your profitability journey, we have different programs available ranging from do-it-yourself to one-on-one coaching. Our course, The Profit Blueprint, teaches you everything you need to know to transform your profitability. There are 3 different tiers ranging from DIY to done with you so that businesses of all sizes can get the support that's best. Join the waitlist in the show notes to get more information and be a part of the next cohort. If you want a done-for-you service, you can hire us as your Chief Profitability Officers. We only work with a handful of clients, so they all get our full attention. We work with business owners who have or are growing to $500,000 to $10 million in revenue. You can use the scheduling link in the show notes to get on our calendar for a good fit conversation to see if we're the right people to support you and how we can help you.
This episode of the Profit Answer Man podcast is brought to you by SMBpodcastnetwork.com. The network is a collection of podcasts and shows from around the internet which focus on bringing you interviews with amazing guests who share actionable advice, ideas, and information for small and medium-sized business owners and entrepreneurs. Visit www.smbpodcastnetwork.com to find more great shows and easily subscribe to be notified of new episodes. It's a great way to discover quality content. If you've discovered us via the network, then I hope you enjoy today's show and will consider subscribing directly so you never miss our episodes. Remember to check out my other podcast, Richer Soul, where we talk about how to live the ultimate life and be the best business owner you can be. As we close out, let's repeat the mantra. Revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Have an abundant and profitable week.